Coming up, former NBA stars are taking the game overseas, and they're bringing the gospel with them.
They can open up doors that no one else can.
Plus,
I could not believe what had happened.
a Cornhusker gets trapped.
If I don't get free pretty soon, I'm going to bleed to death.
And you won't believe what he had to do to get free.
I said, I think I need a little help.
On today's 700 Club.
Well, welcome to the 700 Club. A few days ago, I told you I just didn't know what was going to happen in the market, and yesterday proved that I was right. It was one of the wildest rides in Wall Street history, with stocks plunging nearly 2,000 points in just a few days, and now it looks like they're shooting straight back up again, as China is trying to boost its weakening economy by cutting interest rates once again.
Well, some investors are urging people not to overreact and to ride out the storm. And as Dale Hurd reports, that roller coaster ride isn't over yet.
Wall Street has been looking for a rebound, and European averages shot back up as the trading day began. But China's Shanghai Composite was down another 7.5%. And China today again cut interest rates for the 5th time just since November in its latest attempt to boost its slowing economy. That weakening Chinese economy is one of the key reasons why the U.S. market has fallen so sharply the last few days and led to such a wild ride, with the Dow down 1,000 points, then back up 1,000 during the day Monday. And traders say expect more of the same in the days ahead.
It's going to be a volatile week. It's going to be a lot up and down. What the global stock markets are doing and have been doing for this past month is repricing a growth in China that is less than it had been.
The Dow is now down 11% from the start of the year, and the bloodbath on the Chinese stock exchange has some worried that a U.S. stock slide is overdue.
The market has gotten ahead of where the actual economy is.
The White House was trying to quell the panic Monday by preaching what it calls the long-term strength of the U.S. economy.
U.S. businesses over the last 65 consecutive months have added 13 million jobs. That's the longest sustained private sector job growth streak in American history.
Experts say that over the last week, the average American's 401k lost $9,000. But over 5 years, that same account is up about 60%. And many analysts say that even though more volatility is ahead, they expect that over the longer term, patient investors will still come out ahead. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, it's not just the price of stocks that have been falling. Oil has been dropping like a stone, and that could lead to good news at the gas pump. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington.
That's right, Pat. The price of oil has been plunging in recent months to its lowest level in 6.5 years. And AAA estimates the price of gas could also keep falling, going below $2 a gallon by Christmas, possibly even by Thanksgiving. Gas prices haven't fallen as fast as oil has due to some operational issues at several major oil refineries. But gas is already under $2 in some states, while the national average is around $2.58 a gallon, the lowest since 2004. Lower gas prices could give people extra money in their wallets, and that could be a boost for the economy. Pat, that sounds like good news for most drivers.
Well, it's good news for the drivers, but the truth is that the oil industry employs many thousands and thousands of people, and people are getting laid off by the thousands in these high-paying jobs. And places like North Dakota are going to be into a serious recession, as are other of the oil-producing states. So what may be good news for the motorist is going to be killing news for the oil industry. So it just depends on which side of the fence you're on. John?
Pat, a new undercover video exposing Planned Parenthood shows a discussion involving a serious problem at many abortion clinics: sanitation. The latest clip from the Center for Medical Progress comes after a Los Angeles Superior Court judge ruled the group does indeed have the right to release its material, despite legal action against them. As Gary Lane reports, that decision prompted the release of more damaging footage.
The video released by the Center for Medical Progress shows the CEO of STEM Express laughing about how her lab technicians were shocked when they received fully intact aborted babies from Planned Parenthood.
Tell the lab it's coming. Then I'll open the box. Oh, God.
STEM Express is the company that purchased aborted babies from Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood's Deborah Nicotola talked about the demand for fetal organs.
Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted longer. And then she felt like I said, always as many intact livers as possible.
Also in the new video, Planned Parenthood's Melissa Farrell talked about the business of providing intact baby cadavers for the harvesting of internal organs.
So if we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
And CMP suggests those line items apparently mean greater profit for Planned Parenthood.
We agreed that $100 would keep you happy.
I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The buying and selling of human fetal tissue is a violation of federal law. While Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Joanne O'Donnell has now allowed the public release of the undercover videos, a STEM Express violation of privacy lawsuit against CMP will move forward. Gary Lane, CBN News.
And Pat, CMP says it has about a total of a dozen or so videos to release.
You know, if this isn't horrifying, these are human beings, ladies and gentlemen. They're not fetal tissue. They are intact babies. They are people. They are people that would be capable of growing up and being leaders in their community, maybe coming up with some new theorem in science or math. Who knows what potential was in those parts that these people are so cavalierly laughing about destroying. Ladies and gentlemen, Planned Parenthood is a monstrosity. And the time has come for the American people to say, we no longer will fund that thing. As a matter of fact, they should move against it and close it down and declare it illegal. What they're doing is a crime, and it's repeatedly a crime all over the country, because they're individual chapters of Planned Parenthood, and the organization is worth billions of dollars. It is incredibly rich, and yet you and I have got to take money out of our pocket and pay it. The government is insisting that our money go to pay for that. Do you want to have, the Hyde Amendment used to stop this stuff, but oh no, the Planned Parenthood is worse. Are we ever going to stop it? Well, I think if the American people will ever rise up and protest, maybe it will. John?
Pat, along those lines, there's a move in Congress to cut federal taxpayer dollars from Planned Parenthood, and it has also become a political issue among Republican candidates in the race for the White House. Texas Senator Ted Cruz is recruiting pastors to mobilize their congregations in the push to defund the organization. Cruz sent an email to 100,000 evangelical pastors, citing what he calls Planned Parenthood's barbaric practices of harvesting the body parts of innocent babies. Cruz wants pastors to preach against abortion this Sunday, and he's calling for a day of prayer and fasting September 9th. Well, on the Democratic side, it looks like Vice President Joe Biden may also be entering the race for the White House. CNN reports that a senior Democrat says Biden received President Obama's blessing to run. This comes after a secret meeting with Senator Elizabeth Warren over the weekend, and then Monday's private lunch with the president. The move would pit Mr. Obama's number 2 man against his former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who is still the Democratic frontrunner. Many analysts and some Republicans believe Clinton's campaign is vulnerable after her email scandal and national security issues, and that may be affecting Biden's decision.
I think he sees vulnerability in Secretary Clinton. She's got more than an email problem. This is a pretty much self-inflicted wound. When the trust numbers go this low, you're exposed as a politician. So I don't know what Joe's going to do, but if he's ever wanted to run, now's his best chance.
Clinton is now said to be cutting her recent vacation short to head back on the campaign trail later this week. The U.S. is getting some international help to fight the wildfires raging in several western states. 70 firefighters from Australia and New Zealand are now on American soil to fill a shortage of mid-level fire managers. That helps to bolster some 32,000 firefighters already in the field.
The surprise for all of us is the size and the scale of things, and just the amount of resource that's committed to these fires. All the resources in New Zealand wouldn't staff a very small fire here.
It's a big fire, it's a lot of area, we don't have a lot of resources with all the fires going on, so we're covering a lot of ground with pretty few folks.
This is one of the worst fire seasons on record. So far, more than 11,000 square miles have burned. Well, a new report shows another health risk from heavy smoking, and it can lead to potbellies. Scientists at the University of Glasgow found heavy smoking can lead to fat being concentrated in the central part of the body, and that leads to a bigger stomach and what's known as an apple-shaped body. Those body types are at a higher risk for several deadly diseases like diabetes and heart disease. So smokers could be more vulnerable to those diseases, as well as cancer from smoking itself. And Pat, that's bad news for several smokers who say they smoke to keep the weight off.
And once again, the federal government subsidizes tobacco. We're subsidizing the killing of people through cancer, lung cancer, emphysema, Buerger's disease, and these other diseases that come from smoking. The time has come to ban it. I don't know how long it'll take, but I recommended that we have a tax holiday on tobacco companies for about 7 years, let them make all the money they could make, and then declare their activities illegal from then on. And that would be a humane way of putting them to death. Terry?
Well, up next, a former New York Knick becomes an ambassador in Belarus. Jerome Junkyard Dog Williams.
Hey, listen. The dog barking is a universal language.
Yeah, the dog pound, you know, it grows every day. But it's the Lord's dog pound.
Watch how Jerome and other former NBA pros are improving United States relations with countries across the globe.
Well, much as we hate to think about it, the news in today's world is mostly bad. It's bad news, not good news. Well, we have some good news on this program about a team that's reaching people with the gospel, and they're improving relations between two countries at the same time. That's a difficult assignment, but you throw in a basketball and suddenly that assignment can be easier than you might think. As Jennifer Wishon shows us from the Eastern European country of Belarus.
Sports and the passion that surrounds it is a universal language. This widely anticipated basketball game pits former NBA players against the national team of Belarus. And behind the picks, assists, and dunks is an exercise in evangelism and diplomacy.
It is really neat that the American NBA players came to our Belarusian land.
Some people in this former Soviet country remain skeptical of Americans, but bring in members of the NBA and even the native fans cheer.
It's not better or worse than any other ministry, but it's a unique one that can open up doors that no one else can.
20 years ago, Bill Alexson created Sports Power. It's a combination of retired NBA and European League Christians who travel the globe playing national teams and sharing the gospel. The remarkable thing isn't the players' moves on the court. It's the nearly unfettered access they enjoy in the countries they visit.
It's a phenomenal thing. And the press goes everywhere we go. The kids, you say to the kids, jump, they say, how high? And we have our lives changed in the process.
Schools swing open their doors, giving players a chance to witness to kids. Even the highest levels of government pay attention. Jerome Junkyard Dog Williams, who played for the New York Knicks and other teams, is one of Sports Power's stars. His moves are his ministry, and he's growing his dog pound, one bark, one picture, one international venue at a time.
Yeah, the dog pound, you know, it grows every day. But it's the Lord's dog pound. It's his, you know.
Well, what is it like playing on God's team now?
It's an honor. I understand that my platform that the Lord gave me with the NBA puts me on a pedestal in any part of the world.
Former pro Paul Grant gets it too.
You can't have expectations because magical things happen that we can't even imagine on each of these trips.
Belarus isn't a place where Americans always feel welcome. CBN's presence in the country made national news. 7 years ago, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, known as the last dictator of Europe, kicked out the U.S. ambassador and 30 American diplomats. Since then, the U.S. has been working to improve relations, one play at a time.
The idea is to use sports as diplomacy to help use this universal language of athletic competition to help people understand each other better and ultimately to lead to better relations in general.
This summer, the U.S. is funding a new 3-on-3 basketball court in Minsk.
Everybody in Belarus knows basketball because everybody watches NBA. It's on national television. So such events and like being able to have this 3-on-3 program together with the Embassy of the United States, absolutely, it will bring the countries closer.
If the U.S. wants to reach Belarusians, sports may be one of the best ways. President Lukashenko is an athlete and avid sports fan. Just take a look at this palace of a hockey arena he built. He even has a vice president of sports who just happens to be his closest advisor.
I'm wondering what opportunities you see for to use sports to help bridge the gap between the United States and Belarus.
Most of the times, many people lack mutual understanding. And sport itself does not bring any political colors inside of it and does not make people turn their backs to it. And the barking of the dogs shown by Jerome, the hoo-hoo, is much more worth it.
Hey, listen. The dog barking is a universal language.
Yegor Mesheryakov is a product of sports diplomacy. A State Department program called Sports United helped him sharpen his basketball skills in the U.S. and eventually play for George Washington University shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union.
It's been a dream come true, really, because growing up in the Soviet Union, you don't really think about going to the U.S. Even getting some visas were a problem. So suddenly, in a few years, everything changed. And we were very thankful for opportunity.
Now he leads the Belarusian Basketball Federation, sending young boys and girls to learn about American culture and gain new moves on the court.
I was asking them, what's the biggest difference when you went to the U.S. and the basketball approach over there compared to the Belarusian one? And they said the coaches are very inspirational out there. They were very inspired by the idea of women's sports and women's power, that actually such place exists as a women's NCAA Hall of Fame.
Belarus holds a strategic position between Europe and Russia. But before relations with the U.S. can improve, American officials say Belarus must address some major concerns, including restrictions on religious freedom.
It includes concerns about political prisoners. It includes concerns about the right for political parties to participate freely, to have access to free media.
Meanwhile, Christians and diplomats will keep working to change hearts and minds, one game at a time. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Minsk, Belarus.
Well, that certainly is inspiring, isn't it? And I mean, congratulations on those folks. And how nice that our athletes could bring peace. That really would be nice, isn't it, Terry?
It must be fun to play without the pressure of millions of dollars over your head and just do something with meaning that matters to you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, coming up, a farmer who has to make a choice, his arm or his life.
Fire will make you do things that you never thought you would ever do. I said a prayer to God, I'm in your hands now.
Watch him do the unthinkable after this.
Sampson Parker never had much use for God. Sampson was focused on himself, his family, and his farm. But all that changed the day Sampson's hand was trapped in the gears of a corn husker, and he was about to be burned alive.
Early September 2007.
Sampson Parker decided to take a quick break from work to pick a load of corn at his nearby farm.
Everything was going great. I mean, it was just picking the corn. The machine was running perfect, and the big ears of corn was just shooting in the back of the wagon like they're supposed to.
Then his corn picker jammed.
The other times when it clogged up, I always kept the corn picker cut off. This time, I thought by turning the machine on that the rollers would take the corn stalk through, and it didn't. When I grabbed a hold of the corn stalk and pulled down and couldn't get the corn stalk to come out, then I pushed up. And when I did, in a split second, it pulled my hand up into the rollers. I was so mad. I could not believe what had happened.
Sampson felt the rollers rip into his glove and then his right hand.
It was very painful. I was panicked. I was like, if I don't get free pretty soon, I'm gonna bleed to death right here.
He started grasping at anything within reach.
I was busy with my left hand digging into the dirt to get dirt and rocks. And I knew I had to jam the machine to get my hand free from the rollers. At that point, I turned to God and I screamed out, cried out to God several times for help. I was so scared that I was going to die there, and my family, my wife Leanne and Sampson Jr. coming down finding me on the farm, because they wouldn't, very many people knew I was down at the farm that day. I was going to do whatever it took to get free from that machine.
Sampson then spotted the metal pin connecting the trailer hitch to the picker. He kept trying to jam the gears with the pin, but every attempt failed. Finally, it worked, and the gears and rollers came to a stop. But his hand was still stuck, and the gears kept grinding. They threw sparks into the corn stalks below, and soon he had another problem.
Just screaming for help and crying out to God. The biggest thing I was thinking about was I wasn't going to burn to death there.
Sampson realized he had only one option. He reached around for his pocket knife.
Fire will make you do things that you never thought you would ever do. When I screamed out to God to help me, it was like God took my left hand and I brought it out and just jammed it into my forearm. And that was painful. My hand being ripped apart by the rollers, that was painful. My leg being on fire and my arm being on fire and burning and the skin melting like plastic, as you can imagine, that was painful. But when I hit those nerves in my forearm, that was pain. I passed out for a little bit because I remember looking down at my mom and my wife arguing to me where I was going to be buried. And somehow I came to, and I continued to cut my arm off.
Sampson had been trapped for 2 hours when he freed himself.
I'd never forget jumping up and screaming, "I'm free, I'm free." I mean, as bad as it sounds, but I was so excited. So I jumped in the truck. I knew I had to get help. When I arrived up to the road and I started trying to wave people down to get people to stop, nobody would stop. So what I did is I pulled my truck crossways in the roadway. I said a prayer to God that I have done everything I can do. I'm in your hands now. And people still drove around in front of my truck. As I was dying, I was thinking, man, I hope somebody will stop.
Finally, someone did. He was an off-duty EMT.
My truck door opened up and this guy sticks his head in and he says, "Hey man, are you okay?" And I raised up what was left of my right arm and I said, "I think I need a little help."
As he worked to stabilize Sampson and stop the bleeding, a woman arrived on the scene who happened to be a nurse.
So God had sent the right people at the right time, right there in the middle of nowhere. He answered my prayer.
The pair arranged for a life flight to take him to the hospital. Not long after, Sampson's wife Leanne got a phone call from her mother. She had no details, only that Sampson had been in a bad accident.
No one's ever prepared for a call like that. I did pull over and stop the car, and I, just cried out to God that I wasn't ready, to lose my husband yet.
Sampson was flown to the Atlanta Burn Center. It was a 4-hour drive, and Leanne and their son Sampson Jr. prayed the entire way.
I guess the worst part was not knowing what had happened to him, what the severity of the accident was, or whether he was by himself, or just not having any knowledge at all as to what happened.
At the hospital, they learned about the accident and how badly Sampson had been hurt. Still, Leanne says she felt a sense of peace.
A lot of answered prayers. I've never felt anything like that in my life. There's a sense of calmness. There's a sense of being able to deal with what you're going through. And it was like, almost like arms were around me, just loving me and holding on to me and taking care of me.
Over the next several weeks, Sampson underwent 6 surgeries and a number of excruciating burn treatments. He had time for a lot of thinking.
Before the accident, I was a guy who was all about my family and myself. And I wasn't baptized as a young kid or had never taken Jesus into my heart. But I knew as soon as I was able to get out, the first thing I was going to do was take Jesus into my heart.
When he got out of the hospital, he did just that. For Leanne, it was another answer to her prayers.
How excited I was that he was accepting Jesus Christ into his life that day and joining the church and joining us. I have spent years and years and years praying for him to be by my side.
The Parkers have adjusted well to Sampson having only one hand, and they take nothing for granted.
Good job, babe.
Sampson is a gift from God. He is the love of my life, and I wouldn't know what to do without him. And I am thankful every day for him and the time we have together.
Sampson has told his story many times, but what he most wants people to know goes beyond his survival.
If you cry out to God, he is there for you. Also, the prayers work, because I'm living proof that prayers work. I'm right here, and that there is a God.
Why would you wait until some unspeakable tragedy traps you and you have to make a decision to save your life, and suddenly you realize that God's there? God is the author of the universe, and he loves you. You don't have to lose a hand or an arm or a leg. You don't have to get disfigured in your face. You don't have to have an IED blow up underneath your vehicle. You don't have to have all that happen in order to find the Lord. Right now, he says, now is the day of salvation. Now is the accepted time. Right now. And I urge you, as I'm talking to you right at this moment, don't wait to have to lose a leg or an arm or your family or your child or something in order to turn to the Lord. Right now, bow your head, pray with me. Pray these words. Jesus. That's right, pray with me. Jesus, I know you died for my sins, and I know you rose again that I might live. So right now, Lord, I'm grateful for all of your blessings. But beyond all that, I want you to know that I give my life to you right now. And I ask you to come in, take over my life, live your life in me. And from this moment on, I will live for you and I will serve you. Thank you, Lord. Amen. If you prayed with me, I want to give you something. It's called a new day. What happens next? What happens next? The Lord has a wonderful plan for you. It's all laid out. It's a beautiful thing. And I'll give you this. All you have to do is call. It's 73 minutes of very intense teaching about what happened to you and what will happen next. 1-800-759-0700. Call in. God loves you. Terry?
Well, still ahead, we're going to bring it on. Darla says, Pat, the first of the year, you told us that something was going to happen in the financial realm that would start in China. You were right on. What happens now, especially here in the USA? Pat's answer to that is coming up. But first, we're going to talk with a woman who founded an organization that's helped fund 1,000 wells and water projects all around the world.
And welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN News Break. Suspected Islamic militants attacked Christians in the West African nation of Burkina Faso. The armed men wounded at least 2 people. An eyewitness says the masked gunmen took over a police station, telling him they were with Boko Haram. They told him, "We are looking for Christians and you are spared because you are a Muslim." The incident happened near the border with Mali. It is not known if the suspected militants have a direct connection to the radical Islamic group Boko Haram, based in Nigeria. Well, it is no secret stress is not good for your health. Now research finds that even seeing someone else under stress could cause problems for other people. A team of psychologists at St. Louis University found a stranger just observing someone in a stressful situation had elevated heart rates and cortisol levels. Doctors say increased cortisol can cause weight gain, issues with the immune system, as well as many other health problems.
You can elicit these responses just by sitting and watching someone else under stress.
So how do we spread stress? Researchers say facial expressions, voice frequency, touch, and even odor. So it's a good idea to remember that keeping calm not only helps you, it can help those around you. Stay calm, and remember, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website. It's cbnnews.com. Pat and Terry are back with more of the 700 Club. It's coming up right after this.
To listen to our top songs of the week, go to CBN Radio at cbn.com.
Clean water, most of us take it for granted, but not Janet Baker. She's seen firsthand how every drop is precious.
In 2004, Janet Baker was at a CBN Partner Conference when she got an idea of how to help women and children in impoverished countries. She called it the Widow's Mite Experience. Over the years, the organization has funded more than 70 wells and water projects around the world.
Please welcome to the 700 Club our dear friend Janet Baker. It's so good to have you here today.
It's so good to be here.
And talk a little bit about, you were an interior designer and very involved in all of that. How did you become involved in the issue of water needs?
Well, I got an invitation to come to CBN for a partners conference, and I thought, I do not have time for this. You know, and
yes, I do.
The Lord just would not let it go. So I said, please book this for me. I came. There were these sessions that, you know, were CBN International and Operation Blessing, and I saw things that I thought, oh my gosh, there's got to be a way to help.
Yeah.
And so I pledged a lot of money.
In faith?
In faith, you got it. But Gordon had said, if it was God's will, it was God's will.
Yes.
And I trusted him.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Well, you went home and God gave you a very creative idea. You had some beautiful boxes that were really very dear to your heart. Tell us about what happened.
Well, I had these boxes that we had bought on any trip that we ever took, and I just loved them. Would not let my grandchildren play with them. That's how important they were.
That's how much you loved
them. And on the way home from CBN, I felt the Lord speak to my heart and say, sell your boxes. And I thought, that cannot be the Lord. No. So anyway, I went home and I knew, being a designer, who would buy them, sold them, and got home, opened the mailbox, and I was in the midst of retiring, and there was a check from canceling a disability insurance policy. And it made up the exact amount of the pledge.
So the insurance policy cancellation and the boxes that you had sold completed the gift that you'd given in faith.
In 1 week.
Wow. You know, God so wants us to understand that he's inviting us to participate with him. Out of that experience came your concept for Widow's Mite. Tell us about that, because it's so unique.
Well, it was at a church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and 8 women started thinking about, well, you know, we've all got boxes of some type. It may not be
some
boxes,
treasure,
it's a treasure. And so we decided that we would ask women to give sacrificially. Nothing that they didn't want. It had to be something that cost them. Yeah. Just like David. Yeah. You know, he would give the Lord nothing that didn't cost him. So we decided that that's what we would do. And the part of it that was so much fun was watching what the women brought in.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, you know, a grandmother's butter dish, a blouse that a husband had given to his wife 2 days before he was killed in the line of duty. He was
so
a
real
policeman. Heart-warming gifts.
Yes.
Oh, we cried.
Yeah.
You know, but it was fabulous to see that women really wanted to do that. So then we took all these items and we had an auction.
And that started equally fabulous to see God rise up and receive that and bless back, because you all have raised a lot of money over the years and you've changed a lot of lives. You've had over 1,000 water and well projects around the world. Did you ever think it would grow to that, Janet?
I didn't, but I know that we serve a mighty God, and there is absolutely nothing that's impossible with him. And the women, the obedience of these women. And I have to tell you, my husband calls our little office, which is about 100 square feet, our world headquarters. And all of the women that work with Widows Mite are volunteers.
Unbelievable. And now that started in Charlotte, as you said, but you have grown and expanded. Talk about what's happened with Widows Mite.
Well, we have chapters now. We have chapters in Indiana. We have chapters in Virginia, in Colorado, North Carolina, Georgia. We've had events all over, and people who are doing event committees in places like West Monroe, Louisiana, and Houston, Texas, and you know, it's just amazing. We get calls all the time, and we're thrilled.
Well, I have been to some of your events, and they are not just impactful, they are fun.
We have a great time, we do.
You do have a wonderful time, and I think part of the joy is the process of doing it all is knowing that you're doing something that matters, something that's making a difference. I think everybody wants to be a part of something that's changing the lives of others, and it must be powerful for you to see God growing this in such a way.
Oh, Terry, it is. And the thing that I love is I was retired. I was sitting there, you know.
Was is the key word.
Yes. And I knew that God had something for me to do. And there are women like that all over the world that now are maybe empty nesters or that have time on their hands. And we would love for them to join us and help get water to women all over the world.
And we're talking about all over the world, but actually there have been needs here in the United States as well that you all have met. Tell us about that.
Well, Bill Horan is wonderful about calling. And yes, and so if there is a situation, the one that really comes to mind the most is Sandy when it hit, because, you know, with the government's requisitions and everything they have to do, that water wasn't getting to these people. And all you have to do with Operation Blessing is say, you get the water there, we'll get a check to you.
Exactly.
And it's there the next day.
Yeah. It's so wonderful to know you can make that kind of a difference. There are, I'm sure, people who are watching right now who are saying, I would like to be a part of something like that. They just get a hold of you and they can start a chapter if there's not one near them, right?
Absolutely. Or they can just have an event and, you know, form an event committee. And we have an event manual that we will send them that tells them how to do things. We're there to work with them. We'll come and help them. We want them to understand that it is an exciting life.
You know, I have seen it firsthand. I have seen the success of what you all have done firsthand, and just want to say to those of you who might be looking for a great way to invest your time and your effort, working with Widows Mite is a wonderful way to do it, because they are making a difference, and CBN partners with them. Orphans Promise, Operation Blessing, we all work together to make these things possible around the world, and many hands make light work. So be a part of that. If you'd like more information on Widows Mite, what you do is log on to cbn.com and you'll find a link to that information there. We want to invite you to join the 700 Club. You know, that's how Janet came into all of this. She came to CBN, she saw what was going around the world and how the need was being met, and we would love for you to see that as well. Joining the 700 Club is simple. It's 65 cents a day, $20 a month, but it makes you a world changer, just like Janet's heart, if your heart is to make a difference. And we always do what we do, Widows Mite as well, with bringing the gospel right into the mix and letting people know about the love of Christ. So be a part of that. You join the 700 Club by calling that number on your screen, 1-800-759-07. Just call now, say I'd like to join the 700 Club, and we welcome you to the many, many outreaches worldwide that happen, that go out from the Christian Broadcasting Network. So Janet, great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. Pat?
You know, we talk about hilarious giving, and Janet is hilarious. I mean, when those people do at those auctions, it's unbelievable. So, ladies, if you want to have something, have a lot of fun, and also do something. Imagine giving clean drinking water to a whole village, and then 70 villages, and then all around the world, people getting water. So, widow's mite. It's amazing what can be done. Selling a few boxes or whatever you got in your house. Well, up next, we've got your email. Question Spencer asks, do we go straight to heaven when we die? Also, what does born again mean? Well, they're pretty important questions.
Don't miss out on our end of summer Superbook bonus offer. If you join the Superbook DVD Club, you're going to receive 3 copies of Superbook's latest release. It's Isaac and Rebecca, so you'll be getting this, plus 3 bonus DVDs and wallet cases of the Bible's greatest water adventures, Jonah, Noah, and Let My People Go. So that's 6 DVDs when you join the Superbook DVD Club for a recurring gift of $25 on your credit or debit card. Here's how it works. Every 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to receive another new episode, and your account will be automatically debited $25. Or, if you prefer just 1 copy of the new Superbook DVD, Isaac and Rebecca, it can be yours for a one-time gift of $25. Just dial the number that's on your screen. It's 1-800-759-0700, or you can log on to cbn.com and order that way. Well, time for some email. Bring it on. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The first one, Pat, comes from Spencer today, who says, do we go straight to heaven when we die? And also, what does born again mean?
Well, you remember Jesus was on the cross, and there was a thief next to him. And the thief said, Lord, remember me when you get in your kingdom. And Jesus says, this day you will be with me in paradise. Mm-hmm. So there was no intermediate state. This day. And the Apostle Paul said, you know, I'm absent from the body, at home with the Lord. Mm-hmm. Okay, what does born again mean? Jesus said to Nicodemus, except a man be born of the Spirit, there's a spirit that we have within us, and that spirit needs to be transformed. And it's like a rebirth. It doesn't mean you go back into your mother's womb and get born, but what it means is that the spirit within you is transformed into the image of Jesus, where you become his servant, his follower, and then you become like him. That's what born again is. You're a new person. If anybody's in Christ, he's a new creation. That's what born again is. And except a man be born again, he can't enter the kingdom of God. All right.
Okay, this is Darla, who says, Pat, when you came on after the first of the year, you told us that there was going to be something happening in the financial realm that would start in China. I believe you said a crash. It's currently happening. You were right on. What happens now, especially here in the United States?
Well, if I could quote the people on the air that you constantly look at, they say volatility. That's the way they get out of it. It's going to go up and down. I believe that overhanging our economy is an unbelievable load of debt. And it's not just here, it's all over the world. And as productivity slows down, then what happened in the Great Depression was when they passed the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, and we began to build walls against our trading partners. And that kicked us into a global depression. So I just believe that there's going to be a default on debt after debt after debt. Greece will be just a little, if you use that term, harbinger of what may happen. But if the United States goes busted, there's nobody to bail us out, and it's very real. The crazy spending that's going on in Washington, there seems to be no end of it. All right.
Okay, this is E.L. who says, why is anti-Semitism so acceptable to the world when it involves one group being racist against another?
I don't think anti-Semitism is acceptable, certainly, but around the world, there's a hatred of Jews. Why is that? I think because the Jews are an evidence of God Almighty, and they are an evidence that he lives and that he has a plan for mankind. And the Jews are his chosen people. And so the devil would love to destroy the Jews, and he puts it in people's minds to hate them. There's an anti-Semitism having to do with Jews. that's illogical. I found it in Eastern Europe. I couldn't believe it. They may have been in Romania, maybe max 2,000 or 3,000 Jews, and yet there was this virulent anti-Semitism. And it's rearing its head of course, in the Arab world, but over in Europe as well, especially places like France. Why? I think it's satanic. All right.
This is Lauren, who says, Pat, spiritual gifts are so mysterious. What or how do you feel when you receive a prophecy? Is it like God is speaking clearly to you, or is it something you feel?
Well, the Bible says we see through a glass darkly and then face to face. We know in part, and we prophesy in part. We don't know. One of these days when we see Jesus, we'll know, but right now we don't know. And so the manifestation of Spirit, read in Romans, 1 Corinthians 12, for example, you'll see the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. And he gives certain enablements. For example, the word of wisdom has to do with the future. And the Lord would speak that something's going to happen. You'd have but it could be impressed on your mind, on your spirit, and it just is part of you. And all of a sudden, there it is. The same thing with the word of knowledge. It's nothing spooky or mysterious, and it certainly isn't psychic. It's just this is what God does. And for those who follow him, the closer you get, the more he will reveal himself to you.
Okay, this is a viewer who says, why is our society so sad and lost in the 21st century? Maybe we should turn back the clock or take the time to do small things correctly like our ancestors used to do. What do you think?
Well, I've been saying this all along. We used to be a biblically oriented people. We were based on the Bible. We thought in our society we were a fulfillment, in a sense, of the prophecies dealing with Israel. In New England, the thought was that this is a city set on a hill, that we're a special, peculiar people, that this is a planting of God. And we honored God in our lives and in our society. What have we done? The Supreme Court has ruled against prayer and Bible study in the schools. It has ruled against almost everything having to do with religion in our public life. It has ruled that abortion is a constitutional right. It has ruled that homosexuality is a constitutional right. It has now ruled that homosexual marriage is a constitutional right. It has done everything it can, and schools and educators throughout the society have done everything they can to turn us away from God. It's small wonder that our society is in chaos, and it will be small wonder if God doesn't judge us. It's just a question of how soon judgment is going to fall on this nation. And if there's ever a time to pray and ask God's blessing, now's the time to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for those questions. We leave you with today's Power Minute, taken from Jeremiah 33:3. Call unto me, and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. Well, tomorrow, a new hope for patients with Alzheimer's, mind training. I mean, it's a great show. You don't want to miss it. And for Terry and all of us, this is Pat Robertson. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.